Najma Kota on CII. Every Wednesday between 10 and 12.
Many South African Indians commemorated the 65th anniversary of the tragedy of the sinking of the SS Tilawa on 23rd November 1942. Steamship Tilawa, with a cargo of 6,472 tons, 732 passengers, 222 crewmen and 4 gunners, was torpedoed by the Japanese Imperial Army. 2 torpedoes from the Japanese submarine 1-29 were fired in the dead of the night. The second fatal one was fired approximately 1 hour after the first, resulting in the loss of some 280 lives. The only known passenger liner to have been sunk in the Indian Ocean during World War II, the Tilawa was en route to Mombasa, East Africa and Durban, South Africa, after having departed from Bombay on the 18th November 1942. With us on the line we have 2 very special guests, Brother Harun Tar Muhammad and Brother Ashraf Romani. We welcome you to the program on this very interesting topic. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
You know, I'm just very curious. When did all the research start and why? I'm sorry, you're not in front of me, so it's just a cue. You're going to have to take, whether Harun or Ashraf wants to answer, you may go ahead.
Okay, this is Harun. My name is Harun Tar Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum to you, Sister Najma, and to your listeners. The thing here is that some approximately 9 years ago, there was a bit of a coincidence that started this whole thing, because my father was one of the survivors from the Tilawa as such. But he spoke to us, but he spoke very little about it. But 9 years ago, I happened to meet a friend of mine called Jimmy Erasmus, and I was actually sympathizing with him about his father's passing, you know. And I was telling him that, you know, my father, who could not swim, survived this particular incident, and, you know, that if it's Allah's will, then, you know, one's life will be taken. And he then asked me, he says, but on what ship was this? And I told him. And he told me, but my father-in-law was involved in the rescue operation of that particular ship.
Right, and that was the HMS, am I right?
HMS Birmingham.
Yes, yes.
So Mr. Len Thomas, who is Jimmy Erasmus's father-in-law,
right,
had these few pictures for me. So that's how it all started. And then the first article appeared in one of the Sunday newspapers in 2001. And ever since then, we've been gathering information, and that's how Ashraf and a few of the other brothers have got together. And, you know, I've been in touch with some of the survivors as such, and we've been gathering information. We've been writing to some of the embassies, trying to get further information.
Brother Ashraf, what was your role in the research process?
Well, I always had an interest. My grandparents perished on board that particular ship. And so I always had an interest in trying to understand what caused this tragedy. And in my own way was accumulating mostly anecdotal information until somebody handed me a copy of the article that Harun Bhai wrote. And once I made contact with him, I discovered he had significantly more information than I had. And that just spurred me on, and I've tried to put as much hours as I could in trying to accumulate much more information. So between the two of us and one other gentleman, Imran Bobat in Durban, I've shared quite a bit, or we've shared quite a bit amongst each other.
What led to the sinking of this 10,006 ton ship?
Well, that's the mystery. That's really what the main objective of what our cause is to try and understand why would the Japanese torpedo, which I believe, or mostly believe, that it was a passenger liner, wasn't really being used in the war effort, or doesn't appear to have been used in the war effort at first, and so trying to understand why would a Japanese commander of a submarine first cripple the ship, wait 1 hour later, and then eventually deliver the coup de grace, which eventually sank her. And so that 1 hour is of crucial interest to everybody, because that will reveal the mystery why she was eventually sunk.
So, I was hoping that for some reason or another you would be able to tell me what could the probable motive have been. I know there is speculation according to the research you've done in the articles I've read on the SS Tilawa. Perhaps for the benefit of our listeners, you can please inform us.
Okay. My theory is twofold. Actually, it's threefold. Either the Japanese are to blame, or the British are to blame, or the Indian government may be to blame. Firstly, the Japanese could be after the cargo. We know there was silver bullion on board. The insurance records reflect that there was silver bullion on board. I also have it on good authority from the Department of Transport, British Department of Transport, that they had told me in a particular email that war risk insurance payment of £3,600 was made in respect of gold cargo. The late Mulna Sima also speculated at the time in discussions with Arun, certainly, and Arun can confirm that, that there was gold bullion on board. So we know there was silver bullion on board. There's speculation there was gold bullion on board. We're not sure if the Japanese were after the cargo, because obviously they needed to serve their war effort, to fuel their war effort. And so, to me, that may be some kind of act of piracy. However, at the same time, there is record of military personnel on board the ship. Mulna Sima seems to think that there was military vehicles on board the ship. There is dispute whether she was registered as a naval or merchant cruiser, and if she was, then she was being used in the war effort. And then that made it kind of fair game to the Japanese to torpedo, but that doesn't explain why cripple her, wait 1 hour, and then eventually sink her. That will always be the mystery, I suppose. Then recent research has revealed that, and I just got to find my notes here, but somewhere there was Indian legislation passed at the time that encouraged or made it obligatory for these passenger liners to be used to be used in the war effort in some way. And this is what it says. It says the Indian government ordered these merchant ships to allow British soldiers on board their vessels and to provide bed and food for them. So maybe the Indians or the Indian government somehow is complicit in this tragedy, in that they, being the vassal of the British at the time, had allowed ships like the Tilawa and the Karanja and other ships to be used in the war effort, maybe clandestine, well, not necessarily clandestine, because there was legislation passed at the time. It probably also explains why there's a great deal of silence from the Indian government. They have made no effort, or we certainly haven't found any effort for them to reveal what happened and why it happened, and make any effort to hold anybody accountable. I've always made this point that had this been a war tragedy in the West, they would have made movies about this. This would have been a Hollywood blockbuster.
That's so right.
Because it's a bunch of Indian
indigent people,
native people, there seems to be less interest in this tragedy.
Ashraf, I can sense that you really want to respond to what Harun's saying.
Look, basically, Najma Ben, basically what we're saying here is that there's a lot of unanswered questions. And in terms of the whole incident, when we speak to some of the witnesses, and some of them are obviously, with the length of time, some of them have now passed away. The thing is that those that we've spoken to, and those that are still alive, have some vague memory about, like one of the people that we spoke to, remember that there were some military vehicles on board the ship, But the thing is, only when you go down to go and examine the cargo, if it hasn't been tampered with yet, will you really know what happened? So the thing is, unfortunately, I mean, those 280 lives that were lost,
yes,
at what cost, and the impact of the rest of the people, on their lives.
Yes.
If I have to tell you, I have 2 surviving aunts that were new brides virtually. One was pregnant and she only realized that she was pregnant when she heard the news. It was typical, story type, where she faints when he heard the story.
All right.
About the ship having been torpedoed.
Right, right.
But believe me, a lot of the people did not want to actually speak about this. Like my late father did not want to speak about this.
Do you know why they preferred not to? You've also mentioned that a well-known survivor, late Maulana Qasim Muhammad Sima, founder of the Muslim Darul Uloom in Newcastle. You engaged with him on this topic as well?
Yes, I actually went to visit him prior to his passing on. I visited him in September 2006, and I questioned him. But also, if you note in the interview, he wasn't too willing to come out unless there were certain things within them that they could not actually say because of the trauma that they went through.
Exactly. Yes.
The thing is that they were in the water. My late father, for example, did not make it to any of the boats.
Yes.
He was on a plank, on a raft, in the middle of the ocean for 2 nights and 2 days.
That was miraculous.
Now that's a real miracle, as such. But the thing is that how many such people, and you might have seen this movie called The Titanic.
Yes.
And you can see one of the scenes after this particular incident had taken place, where people are calling out people's names.
Yes.
And you got these bodies that are floating about that have actually blown up. And the thing is, when I watched that movie, I was in tears because that little bit I had heard from my father, that you could this thing. And when I spoke to Len Thomas, he actually sort of revived those few things in my mind. And that's why I'm so passionate, and I think we're all passionate about this, wanting the truth,
Yes. Well, we'll join you in your efforts to do that, inshallah. What's interesting is that, on the one hand, we're saying that there's a question of whether or not it was used for military purposes or not, and whether the Japanese were justified in the torpedoing of the ship, I beg your pardon. But then when some passengers asked for compensation, it clearly stated that, there was no military interest. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the response from the Indian High Commission.
There's actually a letter on the website, if I can find it, from Mr. Ahmed Isu Baba. That's Imran's father. Had written to the Indian government to say to see if he could get any compensation, and the letter clearly stated that in times of war there's no compensation for this personal loss.
On that subject, I had asked a bunch of University of Cape Town professors to research how we can potentially hold somebody accountable for this. And their response was basically all is fair in love and war, that it's unlikely you'll be successful in any effort, because I thought about bringing a class action suit against the Japanese possibly, but their advice was that it's unlikely you're going to be successful in any such efforts, and that's mostly because of a peace treaty that was signed, and I need to get to my notes again, but there was a peace treaty signed with the Japanese. The peace treaty was signed in San Francisco on September 8, 1951, and came into force on April 28, 1952. So the Japanese and the Allied forces had come to some kind of peace treaty and maybe wiped the slate clean, so to speak. And so from a war rules of engagement point of view, I'm not sure if they were allowed to torpedo the ship, but certainly in terms of their treaty, they may have been absolved of responsibility.
Right. Well, we take a break, and when we come back, we speak to one of the survivors.
Everything they will try and blame. يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورُ. Can any government, any power stop? Almighty Allah made you in the best of forms, in the best of... You forgot your own development?
Tafsir, every weekday on CII, between 1:30 and 2 o'clock. Lifestyle with Najma. Lifestyle on CII.
We're talking about the sinking of the SS Tilawa, and with us on the line are our very special guests, Harun Tar Mohammed and Ashraf Rumani, who are involved in the research on what actually happened to that fateful ship 65 years ago. Now joining us online are two of the survivors, Mr. Chunilal Navsaria and Mr. Keki Tavaria. Firstly, we welcome Mr. Chunilal to the program. Welcome. Hello, Mr. Chunilal.
Thank you. Thank you. What can I enlighten you with?
Well, firstly, I must salute you. You are 83 years old, and it is an honor to have a survivor of the SS Tilawa on the program with us today. Do you have a vivid memory of this very unfortunate incident?
Yes.
Can you share some of them with us?
I remember all the events that took place before, during, and after the ship went down. I was 17 years old at the time, and I was traveling alone in my family, coming to Port Elizabeth. I will. Do you want a further?
Yes, please go ahead.
I will left Bombay about, I think it was 19 November or 20 November. And we were on board for 3 days.
Mr. Keki, do you want to speak to Mr. Chunilal?
Yes.
Okay.
Chunilal?
Yes.
Namaste, assalamu alaikum.
Namaste.
My name is Keki. I think we have to speak in English anyway.
Yes.
You speak Gujarati as well? I also speak Gujarati.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Keki Tavaria.
Yes.
I was only about 2 years old at the time of the incidents.
Oh.
When I was a little boy. My father, you maybe know him, you may not know him. His name was Dada Tavaria.
Yes.
It's a long time ago.
I heard the name.
Well, this is interesting, Mr. Keki. I was going to introduce you as a much younger passenger on the ship, much younger passenger on the ship, but you survived, and we're very interested.
Like a little baby, you know,
yes.
like a 3-year-old baby.
Yes.
I wonder how I slept on a seabed. I wouldn't know.
Well, you're here to tell the story, and that's just remarkable. But we will find out from you soon on how you actually survived the incident. Mr. Chunilal, you were saying you left Bombay, and do you remember the first blow to the ship?
I think it was on a third night. I heard a terrible explosion. My accommodation was right in a bottom deck. Mm-hmm. Those days, people used to travel in a deck, and the passage ticket was cheap, around about £15 or so. Mm-hmm. That included board, lodging, and everything. Mm-hmm. Now, third day, while I was falling asleep, must have been about 1-2 o'clock. I heard a terrible explosion. And I don't know what my instinct told me. I must run for my life. Mm-hmm. And I took my life belt. I went out to the upper deck. Upper deck also was full of with people. And there was people running up and down, trying to get onto the upper, the boat saloon right on top. Mm-hmm. And I was pushed and jolted and, fell down the stairs. I got up again, and I climbed up. I came near the lifeboat, and the very first or second lifeboat, as it was going down, I got into that lifeboat. I had a terrible shock because I was only a teenager at the time, 17-year-old. Mm-hmm. And
It must have been very, very frightening in the dark of the night.
Yes, no, unfortunately it was a full moonlight.
Ah.
It was Punem.
Mm-hmm.
Full moonlight, and I could see. And now the ship flares were going up. The siren was going up. And there was real care because the ship was overloaded with passengers. There were 900 people on board. And the crew of about 200. And everybody's trying to escape from the ship because they know what will happen. I got into the lifeboat. When I got into the lifeboat, I had, they were all classes, crew people that they ran out first. And there were few passengers. I was one of the one. I was badly hurt while getting into the boat. And then the crew unhooked the lifeboat. We moved away from the ship. As we moved away from the ship, I could see, other passengers trying to get into the lifeboat, trying to undo the lifeboat so they can get the lifeboat down. But they didn't have a clue how to get the lifeboat down. So most of the crew ran out first.
Oh, there were no crew members helping them.
Yeah. So once we got out there, it was about another 15 or 20 minutes, I think, we heard another explosion. That must be the second torpedo. And then the lights of Tilawa went off. And I see because of the full moonlight, you could see very clearly the front portion of the ship was going down. The back portion was slightly gone up.
Right.
And there was shouting and,
the panic and
crying
the screaming.
and panic and all that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chunilal.
Yeah.
There's a caller that wants to know if you remember her father by the name of Mr. Ibrahim Muhammad, who was also a survivor, currently from Randwick Jewelers. She wants to know if you remember him, Mr. Keki. Oh, well, you were too little, so I don't expect you to know. But do you remember?
No. It was only 3 days, wasn't very much.
Oh, yes. You didn't get to know the other passengers, yeah?
Only people I could remember when I got into the boat, there was a couple from my town. They were coming to East Africa. And when I left, my mother left me on a ship. She spoke to them to take care of me. That's the only couple I remember, and my actual accommodation was next to them. And then, unfortunately, they didn't survive. I don't know what happened to them because I ran out. And somebody is telling me they went downstairs again to pick up some stuff. At the time, the boat went down.
Oh.
So the couple, the wife of the husband was from Port Elizabeth, and husband was from Rhodesia, from whatever they call now, Harare. So I don't remember much, except two young ladies. That particular night I was playing cards with them, but they were all came from Kathiawar, north, and I come from Gujarat. So I don't remember their whereabouts or anything.
No, that's okay. That's clearly understood. So you actually had to watch the ship go down and other passengers that were on the lifeboat and just never made it to the water.
No.
That must have been terrible for you.
Yes, I got a fright. After 3 months, I came back on another ship. But I could hardly sleep at night because I was worried just same thing will happen again.
You were very brave to go back on a ship after that. Well,
yeah.
what actually happened when, there were the HMS Birmingham crew that actually came up to rescue and so on? Were you rescued by them? How long did you spend on sea?
I wasn't rescued by them. We were on lifeboat for that night. The next day, all day. The next night, and the third day, we were picked up by the ship, warship cruiser, was named Newcastle. They had a too small plane on top, so they were searching all the seabed to see where the lifeboats are and where the rafts are. A lot of people escaped on a raft.
Yes.
The cock raft.
Yes. This is where I think Mr. Keki's story comes in. Hey.
Yes.
I was in the water with my dad, you know.
Okay.
And
Mr.
I
Keki?
think gentlemen will actually bail me out if I'm right or wrong. We were in the water around 18 to 36 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You know, plus minus before we were rescued, you know, onto the HHMM.
Right.
And after that, I don't know what happened there, and then we were taken to Bombay. I just want to know from the gentleman on the other side.
Yes.
That for example, when we left Karachi, I'm sure from Bombay, then he goes to Karachi. From Karachi, then he sails across to African continent, you know. So where did it happen thereafter? After we left Karachi, 2 days later, or 1 day later, or 4 days later, it happened. If you could fill me in this, I'll appreciate.
Sure. Harun or Ashraf, who wants to respond to that?
Well, our estimate is around the third day after they had set sail. This is when the incident took place. But some of the information is not too accurate. I think I have it that the ship actually sailed on the 19th.
So when we sail from Bombay or from Karachi third day?
I'm not too sure about Karachi, but when you left Bombay, I think it was the 19th of November.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 23rd of November, that's when the incident took place. So that means it would have been the night of the 22nd and the early morning of the 23rd of November.
Mm. Yeah, you know, I'm actually looking some of the photos here, you know, on the internet, and then one stage we seen that, you know, it shows us a ship. I presume it's HMM, whatever it is, and behind that it shows a city.
Yeah, that city is Mumbai. You will see Gateway of India in the background.
Oh.
That's when the HMS Birmingham had arrived in
Mumbai
Mumbai
okay.
to offload the passengers.
I see.
But
so,
I just want to get back to the
on the way back
yes,
to Bombay.
Harun or Ashraf, just hold
Thank
that
you.
thought for me. We need to take a break, and please respond after the break.
Imagine a global bank with the heart and soul of an Islamic organization. Now imagine a full Najma Kota on CII. Every Wednesday between 10 and 12.
011-213-2719. You can talk to us. We're speaking about the sunken SS Tilawa to survivors and researchers. Brother Ashraf, you wanted to respond to something before the break.
Yes, a couple of things. Firstly, there were two rescue ships. There was also the SS Carthage, which came after the Birmingham. I think the Birmingham did most of the rescuing, but there was a second ship. Also, what I did want to tell the brother that my email address is on the website, and if he wants to email me his details, I can actually send him a record of the ship's movement up until the time that it was torpedoed. I just can't find it right now, but I think he has an interest about when it left Mumbai and when it actually got torpedoed.
Okay.
The other thing is that you had a caller just now that's the daughter of Ibrahim Muhammad Rendre.
That's right.
Now we have a photo on the website.
Yes.
With Mr. Rendre on that picture.
Yes,
and that's
I've seen that.
picture where all the survivors are, or some of the survivors are on the HMS Birmingham. And maybe, some of the listeners could perhaps, and if there are any survivors, can look at that picture and try to see if they can recognize anyone, or they might be there themselves. And also on that lifeboat, the lifeboat picture is a bit small.
Yes.
So one has to actually blow it up and see if, we can, pick up anyone that we know. However, the lifeboat, it is thought that the gentleman in white in the middle of the boat is actually the captain that's on the boat. And, this we find quite strange because we always believe that the captain should be the last person that leaves the ship.
That's right.
Yeah. And the thing is that what had happened here was that the first officer, we're given to understand, I don't have his name as such with me, went down with the ship as such. and that you heard from Mr. Chunilal as well that a lot of the crew had actually rushed the lifeboats and had got onto the lifeboats and had left the vessel. Whereas, the passengers should have been helped and things like that.
That's right. Mr. Chunilal,
yes.
Do you have any memory of that in terms of where the captain was? And I'm sure there was so much of panic, it didn't matter to you at the time. But were you in the lifeboat with him, perhaps?
No.
That's a chance in a million, but...
No, I had a crew.
Yeah?
We had a crew of the ship.
Right.
And they were mostly recruits, from different part of India. And they were not actually trained to how to man the ship. And actually they made biggest blunder was this. They ran out first without helping the passengers. And this is the... And also the problem on the ship, it was only 3 days. And when I saw the crew, they didn't have no clue at all what to do, and it was a chaos. There was no discipline. Of course, I didn't see captain because I was in a second boat. I think second lifeboat. I escaped. The captain must have escaped, left the ship when the ship went down. I think just before the ship went down.
Yeah. If I can come in...
sure, go ahead.
Come in.
Hello?
It's Ashraf here.
Yes.
Mr.
Sorry, Ashraf. Yeah.
I don't doubt your account. Your account is probably a great deal more accurate than what the history books reveal, because the history books make some ludicrous claims about how brave this captain was. And if I can read some of what has been written about him.
Go ahead.
It says... He claims, the captain and the chief officer claims, having shaken hands as the water reached them on the bridge, were swept into the sea but succeeded eventually in climbing onto a raft. It goes on to say Captain Robinson said so, restored order on board, and then for the third time transferred himself to another craft. So he claims to have been one of the last to leave. He also claims to be moving between the different lifeboats all the time, having acted as the real hero of this tragedy, but records, first-hand account seems to be in conflict with what he says. One of the survivors, Mr. Ismail Kader Raoud, who resided here in Cape Town, he's also passed on.
Yeah.
He's quoted in a newspaper in saying, in the chaos, the crew cut the ropes holding some of the lifeboats instead of lowering them into gradually into the water. It appeared that the crew had no training and no ability to be able to rescue these passengers. There's a further account that goes on that says that they had regular boat drills. Boat drills were carried out frequently before sailing. And once at sea, boat drills were carried out frequently as well. But they were only 3 days in sailing for 3 days. I don't know how frequently these drills could have been carried out, and if they were indeed carried out. It doesn't appear so from Mr. Chunilal's account. So I don't know the veracity of what the history books claim, but I certainly believe what Mr. Chunilal says and what Mr. Kader Raoud says, that the crew was inept and incapable, and they abandoned these poor passengers to their fate.
Now, you have a passenger list. How accurate is this list? Are you happy with it?
Yeah. Maybe I can respond to that.
Sure.
That particular list was given to me by the Suleiman Nana family, the famous late Suleiman Nana from the Transvaal Indian Congress.
Correct.
Apparently, when the article appeared in the newspaper in 2001, the family actually contacted me. It was Dr. Rashid Surti that actually, is it Ahmad Surti that actually contacted me and said that we have a list here which might be of some importance to you, because, it says there clearly missing persons and people that survived, and that's right. The one that now you find on the website as such. And I'm so thankful to them because they've put in they've actually put in filled a big part of the jigsaw.
Absolutely. I mean, what's interesting is that you have survivors, and then the list, one wouldn't know, it's assumed that everyone else just perished. However, what about the missing persons?
Well, the missing persons are also on that list.
Yeah.
And, the thing is, I've verified, like, my 3 uncles that were lost at sea.
Yes.
Their names appear on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And those that survived, my father's name is there, and so is all the people that I've contacted so far. And they've confirmed this list. And alhamdulillah, this is great information that
That's
actually
correct.
puts them in this thing.
All right. So, Harun and Ashraf, what is your next step? Because you've done tremendous work up to now, and we've created an awareness, hopefully, through this program today, and we'll carry on doing this. What would you like to see happen?
Well, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. The thing that we'd like people to firstly visit our website and contribute whatever information that they can, actually.
Yeah,
because it is from the people that we get all the information.
Right.
And to fit in the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle as such. But the thing is, ultimately, we need answers. We need to know what is the truth, what actually happened out there. I mean, why was a passenger liner? I mean, you've had the Jews asking for reparations.
Yes.
What happened to them in the Second World War?
Yes.
I don't say that we should perhaps go that route, but nothing stops us from doing such things because, I mean, it's our people that have that have lost their lives, and that so many destinies of so many peoples have been affected by these things here, rather more negatively than positively.
Got it.
Allah knows best, but
That's
the thing
right.
is, this is what's happened.
All right.
And we need to establish the truth.
One more eager caller, Mr. Chunilal.
Yes.
The question is, do you remember Mr. Abu Bakr Kala? He was a passenger. He did not survive.
No, lady. I can't remember anybody. I got some photographs that was taken by a gunner of HMS Birmingham, the cruiser warship, taken from the ship of some of the survivors. Which I've got. The gentleman who took that photos, he was a gunner at the time. He lived in East London, Mr. Murray. And he contacted me and he gave me some photographs where you see some of the lifeboats and passengers, But I can't remember. I was too young, 17-year-old.
Maybe we can get some of those photos to put on the website.
Yes, inshallah. I think it should be. Well, what we can suggest to the caller is that you look at the list on the website. So I think it would be appropriate now to mention the website. Harun or Ashraf?
Yes, Ashraf,
It's www. I gotta get the exact. I don't mind. Maybe you must.
www.sstilawa.com.
TILAWA.com. SSTILAWA.com. That's the website.
No spaces in between.
No spaces in between.
If I can come in now.
Gee, please go ahead.
Okay. As I said to you, I was a toddler at that time, and my dad was in contact with some of these gentlemen, like, for example, Bulla Chipa of the Golden Era Apprentice, and then Ranjit Bhai Desai, Bhagwanji Bhai. My grandfather was actually associated with Jishwa at that time. Now he's just he's one of the founder members as well. And I was taken by surprise when I read this list of survivors, and all these people used to visit my dad and talk to me and things like that, but I never knew that they were on the same boat as I was.
Oh, okay.
And it's something that this is so beautiful thing that you can read, and
yes.
I mean I can just imagine how people must have survived or lost their life in that horrible sea waves and whatever it is.
Right.
And I went back to India. I came back to South Africa in 1950. And ever since then, I'm in South Africa. I went to India once just for a visit in 72, and I came back by boat again.
Okay.
Just to experience it again.
Right. Well, you know what? I am so sorry that we've run out of time.
Yeah.
And this has been extremely interesting. I must congratulate Harun and Ashraf and everyone else that's involved in the research and bringing together all the information.
For sure.
And to all of the survivors. Well, alhamdulillah, what can I say? Mr. Chunilal,
yes.
many more years of happiness and good health to you and Mr. Keki and all the others. Thank you very much.
Thank
you very much. God bless you.
God bless you, and everything of the best to the Islam Radio as well.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, that was interesting. We'll get survivors to talk to us as we get them in, so please log on to that website if you have any information on any of the survivors, or if you know of anything that can lead the researchers to their objectives, inshallah. So with that, until next time, assalamu alaikum, and I'm looking forward to being with you again.